Okay, folks, thanks for holding on. I think we're ready to get started here. My name is Travis Durick. I'm a product manager here at Peplink. And if you haven't joined, I've hosted several different webinars over the last several months to give you guys examples of how Peplink can be used in different scenarios, applications. And today we're going to talk to you about how Peplink can benefit branch edge network deployments. So, first and foremost, as always, Peplink's main mission is to deliver unbreakable connectivity anytime, anywhere. We've got a couple pictures up here from real world deployments, and these are obviously pretty unique applications. We've got autonomous driving. We've got some folks launching rockets out in the middle of nowhere. Those aren't necessarily branch edge deployments intuitively, but the real message here is we can scale our technology up and down to fit whatever scenario. And that means the hardware can fit the cost and the budget of the deployment. And that means the technology can scale up and down to meet the demands and requirements of those customers. Now, when you're going into enterprise branch deployments, enterprise is the key word there. And so customers want to be comfortable that you've got a solution that's going to fit into the needs of an enterprise and the expectations of an enterprise. And so the best way that I find to make customers comfortable with that is for them to see other customers, other peers doing the same thing and see how they like it. So Gartner has a peer insights site that I think is a great place to help customers decide for themselves if Peplink is going to provide a good solution for their branch edge network. You can go to this site, you can check out all of our rankings, you can see 46 reviews, excellent reviews. You can see these are very large companies, 1 to 3 billion, 30 billion plus. These are companies that don't deploy technology without doing a lot of due diligence. And as you can see, these are very happy customers. So again, when you're trying to convince a customer that Peplink is the right fit, I really like to use this site as a testament to what Peplink's technology can deliver on. But let's dive right into it. I'm going to talk about 5 different features today and show you as well in our system how you can actually use these to make branch edge deployments easy and make them work great. So the very first one is our packet level SpeedFusion SD-WAN. This is Peplink's magic that makes all kinds of benefits achievable and affordable for your customers. The really important thing here is SpeedFusion is a packet level technology. Other players with LTE routers, they're not able to achieve these different levels of benefits, and they're not able to protect applications with these different algorithms that we are. Again, we're doing SD-WAN at the packet level. Most other players that advertise SD-WAN, they're really not doing it at the packet level. So they're not able to achieve these great benefits. Hot failover, that's making sure that a phone call doesn't get dropped if your primary internet connection goes down. Users don't expect that, right? They get a failover router in place. They're on a phone call, they're on a Zoom meeting, internet goes down, everything goes down in the office, all their applications log out, timeout. It fails over automatically, right? They get to go log back in, they get to call the person back. You know, within a minute or 2 or 3, the office is back up and running on that backup connection. But again, it's not seamless. It's not what customers are expecting. And so SpeedFusion is able to deliver that seamless hot failover experience. Now we've also got WAN smoothing, which is an algorithm designed to protect real-time applications. So voice, video, you can optimize those even in environments where you've got high packet loss, inconsistent network performance. We can smooth all that out and again, optimize those applications. Then the other thing SpeedFusion can do is bandwidth bonding. That's aggregating the throughput of multiple links, even for a single file transfer, single session. Again, other companies have routers with multiple WAN inputs, but one user, one application, one session is only able to use one connection or the other. Now, if you've got a lot of users, you can kind of spread them out and they're able to utilize that. But again, a single file transfer, a single application isn't going to be able to achieve the throughput of both links at one time. It's only going to be able to use one or the other with competing solutions. So again, these are all different algorithms and strategies that SpeedFusion has in its tool belt. And we're able to deploy these at an application level so that you can use the right mode to protect applications in the right way. The other really cool thing that we can do with SpeedFusion's packet level SD-WAN is we can combine private and public links. So if you've got like private MPLS or some other sort of private circuit, it's usually a very expensive cost. It's usually a linear cost model to get more bandwidth. And so what we see customers using our SpeedFusion technology for is to augment and enhance those private circuits. So you can take a public cable modem, DSL line, LTE, 5G, and you can seamlessly insert that into the network so that you don't have to readdress all your sites. You don't have to change anything on the existing deployment. You're just able to inject that additional bandwidth even into that private network traffic that's going back and forth over the MPLS. We're able to reroute some of those packets over those public links in a secure encrypted tunnel and put it back into the private network on the other side. The other cool feature that Peplink has that really benefits in large branch deployments especially is our zero-touch configuration. So our In-Control 2 management system is able to provision all kinds of parameters for your devices globally and automatically, so that all you have to do is ship a router to the location, get somebody there to install it, and plug it into an internet connection, and it's going to take all the settings that it needs. So you don't have to sit there and hand touch each router. You're able to distribute them quickly and scale up without any configuration bottlenecks. So we'll show you how you can do some of those things in a little bit. Next up, and this one pairs up with SpeedFusion, is our application steering and optimization. So application steering with our outbound policy manager, you're able to carve out those different applications that are important to you and then send them to the right place so that they get protected in the right way. Again, this can be done through our In-Control management system in a global and zero-touch manner. So we'll walk you through that as well, show you how that works. Next up, centralized remote visibility and troubleshooting. If you've got locations all across the country or the world, you're going to be having to support users in all kinds of locations where you're not able to actually check things out on your own. You're going to have to rely on remote tools to get you as far as possible so that you don't have to get local staff involved to help users with miscellaneous problems. So we'll show you how In-Control 2 has all kinds of tools to give you that visibility and what tools are available for troubleshooting as well. And last but not least, seamless network integration features. So our routers have all kinds of ways to integrate with existing networks so that, again, even in those private network scenarios, you're able to bring in a packet level SD-WAN solution that is really easy to deploy and really not threatening to the customer. Customers really don't want to change up their whole network just to deploy some new technology. They just want to make their existing system work better is how they see it often. And so with our different integration features in our router, we're able to achieve that really clean, really seamless integration with existing networks so that you can give them those benefits without scaring them away with a whole bunch of extra work. So those are the 5 features. Again, we'll do a demo towards the end of this and walk you through how to actually implement each of these. First up, I'm going to show you some of our devices that fit nicely into branch edge scenarios. Now, a few challenges that people see often when they're deploying branch edge networks is protecting application performance at every location. Oftentimes, each location might have a little bit different mix of connections. And so you need to create policies that are going to work organization-wide to protect those applications at each site. And again, legacy network infrastructure, it's just really hard to get away from. It really takes the agility away from businesses. If they have to rely on 30, 60, 90-day installation times for private circuits, that's just not feasible, and that's just not compatible with today's business environment. Businesses need to be here today and there tomorrow. And so with Peplink and our SD-WAN technology, we're able to utilize that existing private infrastructure, but liberate you from it so that you can operate as quickly and efficiently as you need to, wherever you need to. So here's a lineup of a good suite of branch edge devices that would fit into just about any budget. So at the far left, we've got our Balance 20X. It's $399 MSRP, and that includes an LTE connection in there. So it's got a hardwired connection, so you can get almost a gigabit connection on there. It's rated for up to 900 megabits per second. So any modern DOCSIS 3.1 connection or fiber to the prem, this router is going to be able to handle that kind of throughput. And again, it's got a built-in LTE radio, so it's already got that failover box checked as well. So for $399, you get a heck of a value to get whatever your smallest branch sites look like. This could even be a home user or work from home scenario. This has great Wi-Fi built in, so again, it's gonna work in all kinds of small environments. Moving up the ladder, we've got our balanced 310X. This is just a bigger version of the same concept, really. It's faster throughput, so you can get a couple of those high-speed wired connections in there. So you've got 3 different Ethernet WANs, so you can get maybe your private MPLS, and you can get a couple gig fiber or cable connections into this router. This one also has built-in LTE, so again, you've got that failover connectivity right out of the box. Next up is our HD4 MBX. It's real similar in capability to the 310X, but it's really more focused on the cellular connectivity side. So oftentimes what we're seeing more and more is companies want to be able to stand up branches without any wireline connectivity for as long as they need to. Sometimes it's just while they're waiting for that wireline circuit to get installed, and sometimes it's more of a nomadic application where they might be moving from city to city or location to location. And so they need to rely on those LTE connections as their primary link. So the HD4 MBX has 4 different LTE connections in it, as well as the capability to plug in wired or other wireless technologies like satellite that may have its own links. But you're able to harness the bandwidth of all those different links and manage the utilization of them so that you're using LTE before you're using satellite. And you're able to deliver, again, that seamless, fast experience to your wireless branches so they can behave just like a branch would that has a wired connection. Now at the top of the stack, we've got the SDX and the EPX. These are modular routers that can be outfitted to include LTE radios if you need. So these would work great at a little bit larger branch location. So they've got built-in 10 gig fiber interfaces, built-in Ethernet WANs, built-in Ethernet LANs. And then you can, again, populate that modular slot with LTE radios, fiber connections, Ethernet connections, whatever mix you need for each of those locations. These also work great as head-end devices, so you can kind of roll up or aggregate the connections from several of your branches into your larger corporate network. So we'll talk about that in just a second here as well. I should note the pricing on here is all in US dollars, MSRP. So those of you joining outside of the US, those are US dollar prices. Some other options in our branch edge portfolio is Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is absolutely expected and required, and it needs to work really great, really well, really seamlessly for users, right? They don't want to know the difference between plugging into an Ethernet jack and being connected over Wi-Fi. So we've got a suite of different Wi-Fi access points that are going to fit into whatever deployment scenario your customer's looking to do. On the left, we've got our AP1AC Mini. This is an 802.11ac Wave 2 product. In the middle, we've got our brand new AP1AX. This is Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ax, just came out, and it's a heck of a price point, $299 for a Wi-Fi 6 enterprise access point. It's pretty hard to beat that in the market right now. We've also got our AC Wave, this one's not Wave 2, we've got our 11AC AP1 Enterprise, and then we've also got a companion product here called our AirProbe. This is a diagnostic tool to help you do automated throughput testing of your Wi-Fi. It's got spectrum analysis capabilities, all kinds of on-demand and scheduled tools that you can utilize to run into problems before your users do. So you can really get a user-level view of your networks remotely without having to be there, without having to occupy anybody else's time. You can think of this as a Wi-Fi client built just for testing your network and evaluating the environment. I should note as well that all of our Wi-Fi products support seamless roaming. So we've got standards-based seamless roaming that you can enable on these. So it's a really feature-rich Wi-Fi option for any enterprise deployment. And it gives you a lot of integration benefits that we'll show you when we get into the troubleshooting. And last but not least, switches. Everybody's going to need switches at their offices, and so we've got a whole lineup of 8, 16, 24, and 48 port switches that deliver PoE for high demand devices. And again, our switches give you that advantage of that visibility, that centralized management and control, so that you're able to map policies from the router to the switch and get visibility down to the client port and Wi-Fi access point level, so you can really map out who and where devices are across your entire global deployment. Again, pricing on here is all US dollar MSRP. So how do we put this all together? If you want to SpeedFusion enable your branch sites, it sounds great, right? We want to add more bandwidth. We want to save costs. We want to scale bandwidth in an efficient manner. What business isn't going to say yes to that, right? But the how is where people start getting confused or start running into problems often. And so that's the really nice thing with SpeedFusion is it's really easy to integrate this into your existing network. And it gives you a migration path that you can do as many or as few sites at a time as you and your customer are comfortable with. So here we've got several remote sites, and then we've got our headquarters site over on the left. So at the headquarters site, your customer almost guaranteed has a lot of other network appliances deployed already, right? They've got maybe a security firewall, they've got some sort of maybe larger routing, router doing the enterprise's routing for it. There's usually a lot of these network components in place already when you get there. So using some of the tools that we'll show you in a little bit, you're able to integrate into those existing networks using common routing protocols or using our proprietary drop-in mode to seamlessly insert SpeedFusion into these networks. Once that's set up, your remote sites are able to phone home to the Peplink appliance on site and get that SpeedFusion benefit, and again, make that network experience seamless. So if it's a private network being bonded with a public network, the larger corporate network isn't going to know the difference. They're not going to be able to identify any change in that. They're just going to have packets flowing a lot faster than they used to. Again, this gives you the ability to do incremental deployments as well. So you can cut as many sites over at a time as you want. You can start with one site and ramp up as fast as your customers are comfortable with. We also support network technologies like IPsec. So if you wanted to put Peplink in the middle of it right away and then just migrate to SpeedFusion, you can keep the remote equipment on whatever vendor's there and use that standards-based IPsec to get you connected back to the headquarters, and then again, roll out those edge Peplink devices to SpeedFusion enable each location one at a time. So with that, we're going to dive into the demo here. Again, we've got 5 different items that we're going to cover here. So if you give me just a second, I will switch screens and get over to our live and control system. Okay, folks, hopefully you're seeing the in control window. If not, light me up in the Q&A. But I'm going to assume everything's good on your side. Okay, so first up, we're going to talk about SpeedFusion. It's really nice because SpeedFusion is integrated into our management system, so it's really easy to deploy something that often can be a pretty complex network. If we go up here under PepVPN SpeedFusion, we can click on Configuration. And I've deployed 2 profiles here. I've deployed a connection to Azure and I've deployed a connection to Google Cloud. So we've got 2 nodes two virtual nodes up in the cloud that are homed where applications that are important to us are located. And then we've got several branch locations here around the country and world. So I'll open one of these up and just show you how we did this. It's really straightforward. So if we click on add, I'll just show you how it looks start to finish. So right away, you get to choose the topology of your VPN network. So you can do star, fully meshed, or point-to-point. Fully meshed is obviously the most redundant you can get. Usually that's pretty complicated to deploy, but we automate it with our tool here. But we'll go with star. That's usually the most common topology we see. Now, right away, you get to choose which device is your hub, which one's going to be in the middle of that star. And so you can just choose whichever one you want. It's going to automatically populate the parameters you need. And then you choose which locations you want to connect to it. Now, I've already got these locations connected this way, so I'm getting some errors here, but we'll jump back into the other ones so you can see the rest of it. So the last page, you don't have to do anything here necessarily. It's going to automatically populate the settings needed to get up and running and connected. But you've got the ability to turn on some of these different features and algorithms that we've got here. So you can customize this as much as you want, but to get things up and running, you just have to click next. I'm not going to push finish here because this is already set up. Now, if we check the live status, you can see all our different nodes, each of their locations. And if we look into one of these groups, we can check our offices out. You can see those connections to Azure and Google Cloud are there and connected. If we go into the router itself through InControl's remote web admin, look under SpeedFusion, you can see those profiles showed up and were pushed down from InControl automatically. So I didn't have to touch these routers to deploy this VPN network. I just had to click through that wizard that you saw. Everything got connected, nice and easy. So next up, we'll talk about zero-touch provisioning of all kinds of different network settings. So you can see we've got routers deployed around the globe here. We've got an office in Paris, we've got an office in Minneapolis, we've got an office in San Jose, and then again, we've got our cloud locations. And so we've got all the equipment in view here, but if we want to create some policies that are going to provision enterprise-wide, it's really straightforward, and we've got a lot of different tools that we can use to do different things. So firewalls are a good example. We can create firewall rules, and we can choose which devices these are going to go to. So we can just make them go to all the devices by default, or you can use tags to choose which policies go to which routers. So maybe your Europe routers need a different firewall policy than your US routers do. That's really easy to manage and maintain here, so that anytime a region or a different location needs those updates, you're able to do it in one spot and have it automatically update everywhere else that it's appropriate. So I'm going to make a Europe firewall policy. I'm going to say the default rule is deny for outbound. I'm going to add a rule. And we've got a great feature in InControl that lets you choose region as a destination. So we can say, let's say France, Germany, UK, and United States. just as an example, we're going to allow traffic to those locations. So if your users get a spoof email that brings them to some malicious site that's hosted in some country, this rule is going to protect those users from going to that site. And similarly, on the inbound, we can create those types of rules. We can enable all the features we want. And again, maintain these centrally. Okay, so if we see that, I specifically said only deploy this to the devices with these tags. If we go back to the dashboard, we can just kind of check our work here and make sure the system is doing what we wanted. So here we can see the tags EU, and then we've got some US ones. So this router, this balance SDX that we've got deployed in Paris, you can see last configuration applied a few seconds ago. So this router has already taken those configuration parameters that we just provisioned over here. Now, if there were multiple routers with that EU tag, all of those routers would have updated respectively as well. We've got some other smaller features that work in that same zero touch central provisioning way, like group networks. So if you've got a bank of servers or different internal systems that you want to be able to make simple policies for, you can include all of those IP ranges in here. And then you can use those as destinations or sources for your firewall rules or your outbound network policies. Similarly, we can deploy VLANs this way. So let's say we've got some IP cameras at all of our locations. We can give them a VLAN ID. In this case, I'm going to deploy them to everything. This is important too, because this is relevant with the routers and the switches. You've got the ability to control if you want these VLANs to push to both or one or the other. And since these are cameras, I don't really want them to route to other VLANs. I don't want them to be able to speak anywhere but the VLAN they're on, so that they can kind of remain private and secure. So now every location in my whole global deployment is going to suddenly have that VLAN, so that you can provision switch ports and things like that to get your cameras up and connected privately. Again, if we want to check our work here, you can see all those devices just took that VLAN, except for this air probe, but that's a different product. Again, you've got just nice, easy tools to give you that confidence that the settings that you're pushing out there are actually making it to the end. So you get that confirmation from every device. We can even see that in here. We can see the timestamp, last configuration applied a minute ago. So you've got records of it. You've got proof that your configurations are actually going out, and you know when and where they took. And you know where they didn't. If for some reason they don't take somewhere, you've got an easy way to trace that back. Now you can also provision SSIDs. So you can provision your Wi-Fi globally. So we can turn that on. We can create a guest network so that every location has a guest Wi-Fi SSID with the same user experience. You can configure that however you want. Again, we've got layer 2 isolation for security, again, on private or for guest Wi-Fi. That's a great feature to turn on. Fast transition. Again, these are the standards-based fast roaming features. You can set individual client speed limits, aggregate SSID speed limits. You've got firewall capabilities per SSID, VLAN tagging, tons of features to give you really flexible Wi-Fi deployments. And also we've got captive portal in here as well. So you can actually apply a really rich customized captive portal to these guest networks. And for your internal enterprise networks, obviously you don't need to do that. But again, you can use tags and provision these globally so that they take whichever location you want them to, and you can update them centrally and not have to touch each one. Now, there's lots of other zero-touch provisioning capabilities like firmware policies. So we can push whatever firmware to whichever products we want. We can push it now, we can schedule it. Lots of the basic day-to-day administration stuff that you have to do on these networks, that's all obviously covered within In Control as well. There's tons of features. We could go on and on about all the different zero-touch options you've got in here. I think the last one we'll show you is just the device IP settings. So when you go to deploy a network globally, there's a lot of legwork that's involved. You've got IP schemes that need to be maintained, and you've got all kinds of settings that need to be adjusted for each site. And this applies on the LAN and the WAN side. So you've got the ability to customize all those settings. I'm going to switch over here to a spreadsheet. Let me just make sure that you guys are seeing that. I think you should be seeing this still. In any case, I've got all my router serial numbers here, and then I've just listed out the networks. So I've populated this with unique subnets for each network. So you can see there's all kinds of different settings and parameters that you can set in a customized, but again, zero-touch manner. So I can just download this as a CSV. And then you can copy and paste that into this little window here, which I've already done. Click import, and you'll see all your routers take that unique addressing and those customized settings that you've provisioned. So here we've got our 0.1 subnet on this router. This one is 2.1. But again, that's customized just as we specified in our master sheet. So really easy to configure those unique site settings that might be needed to really iron out your global deployment. But again, pretty straightforward to do that in a centralized manner. So that covers the zero-touch configuration for the most part, or I should say it transitions or overlaps with the next topic here. The next topic is application steering and optimization. So our outbound policy helps tie in this capability. So I've got a global default routing policy that I've created here. And we'll step you through how we can protect different applications that are important to your users. So we've got a rule here for Zoom. And so all I've done here under the destination from In Control, there's a software as a service option. So you can choose whichever application you want to route, and then all you have to do is choose the algorithm. In this case, I've chosen the priority algorithm, so I'm preferring that any Zoom traffic is going to get protected through this PepVPN or SpeedFusion tunnel that's going to Azure. So I'm going to route all my Zoom traffic through Azure, and then that SpeedFusion tunnel is going to have the appropriate policies that I want to protect that traffic. So maybe that's hot failover. For Zoom, obviously, you'd probably want to use at least hot failover, if not WAN smoothing, to protect and optimize that video traffic if you start getting some network congestion, not necessarily outages, but just subpar performance. So again, you've got the ability here to prioritize and steer different applications to different locations. And again, you can provision this globally. Another rule here, we've got Office 365. We're also telling that to go to Azure through that SpeedFusion tunnel. And we've got a G Suite rule here, so we're going to route anything destined for G Suite through our tunnel, our SpeedFusion tunnel, to Google Cloud, where we've got a Peplink Fusion Hub. I don't think I touched on it earlier, but Fusion Hub is our SpeedFusion virtual machine, so you can deploy SpeedFusion endpoints anywhere you need to on virtually any cloud platform out there. We've got compatibility with Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, Vultr, and DigitalOcean, all kinds of different platforms in the cloud, but it also works with local hypervisors. So if you've got a VMware stack or a Hyper-V stack in some of your critical locations, you can use the SpeedFusion Fusion Hub to tie up connectivity to that so that you can route application traffic in and out of that location with that SpeedFusion packet level SD-WAN. The other really cool thing about the Fusion Hub is you can embed that again in private networks. So again, there's just tons of flexibility when you look at integrating with an enterprise network. Again, if we look at our router over here, we can see we've got those 3 policies provisioned here. And let's just say I don't want that Zoom rule anymore. We'll delete that, see if it's pushed yet. Yep, again, just like we wanted. And again, you can see that rule's gone. So that's gone globally right now because that was the scope of that rule. So really easy to just change up the rules globally or as wide or as focused as you want. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about remote troubleshooting. So I think the first one to show you is the client list because it really shows how the integration pays off with our different products. So when you start stacking up Peplink routers, Peplink switches, Peplink access points, it gives you deeper and deeper visibility into the network, and it makes it easier and easier to do that because it's all centralized and visible from one place. So here we've got this device called an air probe. Again, this is our Wi-Fi monitoring tool, but I made a mistake. I shipped this router out and I'm not sure which label got put on which box. So I don't know if this showed up in Europe or if this showed up in the US. So I want to just figure out where this thing is plugged in. I see it's online, which is great. So I can just grab its IP address here. We can click on that client list. And I can just dump that IP address in, and it's going to tell me, okay, yeah, it's in Paris. It's connected to this router, which is connected to this switch. So you've got really good visibility. You know exactly which VLAN it's on. You know which port it's plugged in. You've got all this visibility on that device just by dropping an IP address into a search box. Now you can obviously just look globally and see all the devices that are on there, but you're able to search by MAC address, device name, IP address, VLAN. You're also going to get the Wi-Fi signal strength. Again, this is rolled up deployment wide. It's not just one site or another site. You've got this really centralized, scaled visibility so that you can drill into wherever you need to. Some other cool things you can do for troubleshooting is you've got some remote tools. So if we just want to run a ping from Minneapolis to a location, we can choose which connection we want to use. Maybe we want to ping into that camera subnet and just make sure our camera is there. Or maybe we want to ping out and just check the performance of our cellular connection. So this is going to initiate that ping from that remote router in Minneapolis, and it's going to send us that output. So you're getting the real time, the round trip time from that remote router to whatever destination, and then it's just displayed up here. So you don't have to log into any routers. You've got that tool right at your disposal. And again, you've got traceroute, remote assistance. You've got lots of different tools here. You can reboot them. You can factory default them if you need to. If somebody got in there and did something that they shouldn't have, you can do that and re-provision them. Again, lots of great tools. Of course, when we talk about remote troubleshooting, we can't skip over remote web admin. You can click a button, log right into a remote router, and this doesn't require any inbound port forwarding on that router. So if you've got a router that's on a cellular connection that doesn't have a public IP inbound, no problem. Remote web admin will still work. Now the other thing to show you here is you can see this cellular connection is not working. It's stuck at obtaining IP address. And so there's a few ways we can watch for this type of thing. One is a little bit hidden by default. If we click on this gear down here, you can click on this disconnected WAN icon setting. So let's say I want the system to just give me a visual cue if any WAN is down for more than 5 minutes. So here you can see if it's good, it's not gonna have a red box around it. If it's bad, it's gonna have a red box around it. And so here you can see disconnected. So we've got a green one, that's good. We've got a red one, that's bad. So again, just really common sense indicators to clue you in just via your eyeballs to little problems that might be out there on your network. Now, if you want to get more proactive, of course, there's lots of alerting capabilities as well. So if we go under settings and notifications, you can create as many profiles as you want for notifications, and that allows you to have different behaviors for different notifications. Maybe you need to alert different groups or different departments for different activities. And so you can create as many profiles as you need. You can have silent windows. So again, maybe an EU deployment, you want to alert staff in Europe, and maybe for the US, you want to alert staff in the US. And so you can just parse that out by tag. And then you can say, okay, if the routers go offline for more than 5 minutes, let me know. If you've got a WAN that goes offline for more than 5. So again, you can have more proactive or reactive alerts depending on what the priorities are. But again, lots of tools there to help you troubleshoot and stay on top of your deployment remotely. Last but not least, we'll talk about network integration. So if we look at our network, our router, there's a few different tools we've got here to make integrating Peplink into existing networks really easy. So first up is our drop-in mode. So drop-in mode has been a Peplink feature from day one, and that's our ability to put the router into a transparent bridge mode. And so the router is going to just take the traffic in from the Ethernet WAN and bridge it through to the Ethernet LAN. And it can either use a public IP in that range or a private IP if it's an MPLS network. But it's gonna be a member of that existing network, but again in a transparent bridge mode. So it's just going to pass traffic through. So the existing firewalls aren't going to really realize that that device is participating, and all your security policies are going to still be valid. If we look under network settings, you can see right here we've got, I clicked on the wrong button, drop-in mode. So we just went to our untagged LAN. We're going to enable drop-in mode. And so we're going to say we want to bridge Ethernet 1 . So again, if you've got an MPLS deployment, you can put the Peplink in between that carrier provided MPLS router or handoff and your existing site firewall. Or maybe you just have a switch. Maybe there isn't any firewalling at each branch, depending on how your network's laid out. But in any case, you can just put this device in line, and then we're able to actually inject the bandwidth either through speed fusion or load balancing for those connections on that pass-through LAN. And we're also able to have our own VLANs that maybe didn't exist before. So again, you can run additional services like cameras or phones that maybe weren't present in the original network. Those devices can use network address translation so that they're still able to utilize all that SpeedFusion capability on the outbound traffic. So drop-in mode makes it really easy to integrate with existing deployments, public or private networks. The other thing we see people do is use our different routing protocol support to integrate SpeedFusion endpoints with the existing network. So you can use OSPF to connect to an enterprise router, and then you can choose which networks to share from the SpeedFusion side to the other OSPF router that's already on site. So you can share all the remote networks if you want, or if there's specific networks you want to advertise and others you don't, you can choose which networks get advertised upstream to those peer routers that you're talking to. So again, you can embed this Peplink into an existing network, peer it up with an existing router, and so that makes talking between a SpeedFusion Peplink site and a legacy site without SpeedFusion or Peplink really seamless. We've also got BGP support. So same concept, just different routing protocol. And for those of you that have been watching over the years, our BGP support is growing. So we're getting a lot more features on here. Every firmware version, we're adding more and more to our BGP capabilities. So if you didn't see something there before, take another look, because firmware 8.10 just came out, and there's, again, new features like BFD included in our BGP stack. So that covers all of the features I wanted to talk about today. So I'm going to just open up the Q&A and just see what kind of questions we've got. So feel free to throw more up there. Okay, first one I see. Does the throughput of the balanced 20X, I think, okay, so is the throughput of the balanced 20X available when all features are enabled, VPN, security? So SpeedFusion throughput on the balanced 20X is relatively low. So that, I think, caps out at, I'll look this up quick. Much lower than 900 megs per second regardless. So in that scenario, you might not be SpeedFusion protecting all of your traffic. You might just be protecting your voice over IP or your Zoom traffic or something like that. So the balanced 20X is great for SpeedFusion protecting specific applications, but it probably isn't a great fit when you need to tunnel everything or protect everything at that site. You might want to move up to the 310X, which has, I think, 500 or 600 megs of encrypted throughput capability on that router. Okay, I see another question. What if remote units using a PepWave modem need to communicate to our cloud? Is there a cloud solution for this use case? So I assume that's like some sort of private cloud or something along those lines. And so the answer to that is almost always yes. Again, we can use our Fusion Hub virtual appliance so that you can put that inside whatever cloud node or platform or hypervisor that's important to your customer. And I've seen Fusion Hub run on just about anything, anywhere. Again, we talked about the big ones, VMware, ESXi, Hyper-V, but I've seen it run on Nutanix and some other kind of more niche or up-and-coming hypervisor platforms. So again, really broad compatibility with Fusion Hub, and that makes connecting it to different clouds and applications really straightforward. I see another question. Is the AP1AX 2x2 or 4x4? So that's 4x4 multi-user MIMO. Again, that's Wi-Fi 6, so that's a pretty bad machine for $299. I see another question about support plans through the partner and channel. right now our support structure flows right back up the chain the way the purchase was done. So customers can reach out to their point of purchase, they can reach up to the distributor, and they can reach up to Peplink. And so we work together with those partners that are familiar with the deployments to make sure that the most knowledgeable people are involved in that support conversation to make sure that all the deployment details are understood and troubleshooting is done in the most efficient way. So the support structure really hasn't changed recently. So I see a request to demonstrate some of the SpeedFusion capabilities. There's lots of video content out there right now that I think more directly demonstrates the capabilities of each individual SpeedFusion mode or algorithm. But I can definitely take that as a follow-up to work on more video content to help show how that application protection really works and demonstrate the benefits in a real world manner. So again, there's plenty of video content out there to show some of those, but I think that's something we can continue to improve and demonstrate more directly there. I see another question about CLI or SSH management access. Yes, this is a great question because there is, just like our remote web admin, there is remote command line capabilities. And so that is available to remotely use the command line of our Peplink router. And it, for products that have serial capability, we're able to remotely interface to the serial device that's connected to that. So maybe you want to be able to remotely manage an existing Cisco router or firewall or another vendor switch. You can utilize that serial capability to connect to the console port of that device and then relay that through our cloud system so that you've got remote, secure, centralized access to those serial ports or those CLIs of, again, the Peplink routers as well. I think we will have an upcoming webinar to look more directly at what some of those remote CLI and out-of-band management capabilities are. So I think that will be either next month or the following. So stay tuned for that. Another question, can you access a Peplink device without the use of in control? Yes, you can. So you can access that locally through the LAN, just username and password, or if you've got more robust enterprise access control enabled. And then you can also access it remotely from the WAN if you so enable that. You can enable remote WAN side access, so you can just log into it from whatever IP address and port you've provisioned for the web admin. I'll show you that real quick here too, actually. There's some good features on that. So right now this stuff is being managed by InControl centrally. So again, great example of how to do this so that you don't end up with one site configured different than another site. But you can see there's lots of different authentication options here. What I wanted to show you is if I enable that web admin access to LAN and WAN, then it gives you some options like firewalls or whitelists so that you can open it to the WAN side, but it's only allowed from particular IP addresses. So that gives you kind of a balance of security and remote administration. But if you're doing a global deployment, man, I don't know why you wouldn't use InControl. I know it costs money, but it will save you that money in one remote problem at a remote site. It's really hard to imagine deploying a global system without having some sort of central management involved there to make it easy. Just got one other question here that I'm reading, and then I think we'll wrap it up. Oh, okay, so it took me a second to understand the question here, but I think I get it. Our full SpeedFusion bonding capabilities available for LTE links that are connected through an Ethernet WAN port instead of using the built-in cellular interfaces. Do you get the same benefits of bonding in that scenario? So I think what the customer or what the person's asking here is, let's say I've got a rack mount router in the middle of my building, right? I'm probably not going to get great LTE connectivity in there. So what if I use like a BR1 mini and put that on the far outside edge of the building, or maybe get an outdoor router, put it up on the roof, and connect that into a WAN port? Is the bonding performance going to be about the same? So assuming that you've got the same level of connectivity, there's no penalty applied or to either scenario. You can use an LTE connection over Ethernet or one of the built-in native interfaces just the same. The only thing you're going to lose is a little bit of visibility on the signal strength and some of those things. But again, you're not losing anything in terms of out of the box capability. It's going to work well either. It's going to work about the same either way. All right, folks, 2 minutes left. I think we're wrapped up on questions here. Thanks so much again for joining. And reach out to your Peplink account manager or your Peplink partner if you've got questions on pricing or any of the models that we've shown you here today. Thanks again and take care.